The Pacific Northwest, and in particular the San Juan Islands, is home to some of the most beautiful cruising grounds in the world. Sailors who cruise here claim it to be both challenging and rewarding. Strong currents and tidal swings require careful planning and a sharp lookout, but the payoff is the scenery. My first real sailing experience was in college, when some friends and I hired a salty, one-armed captain named Chuck to take us on a weekend charter. A few years later, I moved to Maui, and while I spent a fair amount of time on the water and could pull a line or steer for a few minutes at a time, I didn't really know how to sail. I was mostly just along for the ride, but I loved it, and a love for sailing isn't something that easily dies. A few years back, some friends invited us along on an afternoon cruise, and even though it had been years since I'd sailed, my passion for it came back with the strength of a gale force wind. I finally decided to look into sailing courses, and after a Google search, I came across San Juan Sailing. It was just up the road from us, at the same marina where I'd had my first weekend charter. I signed up for a week-long, women-only sailing course and was blessed to be placed with 3 wonderful shipmates, one of whom I still call my sailing sister. And she also happened to be the daughter of Chuck, the salty captain who gave me my first real sailing experience 40 years ago. The universe was really working overtime that week. We ladies really lucked out, and we were assigned an amazing instructor, Margaret Palmer, who has more credentials and accomplishments than I can list, and who is still not only my mentor, but also has become a very dear friend. One of the best pieces of advice Margaret gave us was, if you buy a boat, don't do any major changes or dump a bunch of money into it, because chances are you might outgrow your first boat after a year or so. That was some of the best advice we could have received. And sadly for us, it was the first advice we forgot. Russell had also been out on boats a few times, but it only took renting a small sailboat once for him to become equally hooked. He loved the solitude, the connection with nature, and the fact that with just a little wind and a few triangles of cloth, we could go pretty much anywhere we wanted. His experience in construction gave him a natural, intuitive relationship with the wind. As a carpenter, he would often make use of the wind to push him up steep inclines while carrying a large piece of plywood as a sail. So in May of 2020, we bought a 1976 27-foot Erickson. We actually bought the boat from my sailing sister and her husband as they were preparing to move out of the area. The boat, named Glory at the time, had been well taken care of, but needed some upgrades, as does any boat that age. Here's the part where we forgot Margaret's advice completely. We repowered the boat with a nearly new Volvo engine and bought a new mainsail, among other things. The engine was necessary. The sail and other upgrades probably could have waited. Then we got down to the business of changing her name to Luna Sea. We ordered up new decals, got them in place, and on a cold and rainy day with a couple of our closest friends, we had an official renaming ceremony. It could have been a miserable sail, but with good friends and a whiskey offering to Poseidon, it made it the first of many great adventures. We spent some wonderful days and nights on Luna Sea. This sweet boat was where we fine-tuned our sailing skills and taught the dogs to sail. With Ed trying hard for his first mate stripes, and Tula happy to stay on housekeeping below decks. And of course, just as we'd been warned, about a year later we decided we wanted a bigger boat, one that would take us and the dogs a little further and for longer periods of time. No sooner had we thought that than we heard the lovely yacht Asylum was for sale. Asylum was exactly what we'd been dreaming of, a boat large enough and stout enough to let us sail off into the sunset. A 1990 Beneteau 38-foot sloop, she was stunning. There was a large, comfortable saloon where we could relax and entertain guests, a huge head complete with a good-sized vanity and shower, a proper galley with a great stove and oven, and a spacious aft cabin. We loved everything about her, right down to the stainless steel rod rigging and, wait, the original stainless steel rod rigging that is now over 30 years old. Stainless rod rigging has its benefits. It looks nice, it's easy on the hands, and has a really long lifespan. But the downside is that it's nearly impossible to tell when it's about to fail. Considering that she had spent many years in the Bahamas where it's especially corrosive, we figured since our intention was to take this boat on longer, harder journeys, the safe thing to do would be to replace it. And if we're doing that, we might as well replace the running rigging, right? Here we go again. So we had the mast removed. Which left us with a big old powerboat, but determined not to let Asylum feel bad about being mastless, we still took her out motorboating. When you have family and friends out on your boat on a beautiful day, you can overlook a lot of things, even a sailboat without sails. It was about this time we noticed the steering was getting a little sticky and pulling to starboard. We were convinced something had become wedged between the rudder and the bottom of the boat, or that there was another rudder issue, so we hauled her out. And nothing was wrong. In fact, everything looked great. Our next investigation gave us our answer, but this wasn't going to be a fun or cheap solution. It turns out that the sheaves on the idler plate, the pieces that guide the steering cables, were way out of whack, and yes, that is the professional terminology. You can see here how it's leaning to the side, rubbing against the bracket, and by the time we discovered this, it had nearly worn through the washer and pin and was beginning to fray the steering cable. So while we were waiting for our new rigging to arrive, we tackled this project.
So where the fun's at now is we're trying to take the idler plate, which is that flat plate up there, down, or at least enough apart that we can get the sheave off. And the screws are out, but now it's just a matter of prying it loose, and I'm quite positive that in the 33 years that this boat has been on the earth, that has never been removed. So there could be some new swear words made in the next 20 minutes or so.
Should be able to pop that loose. That way I can take these loose. That's gonna be fun. Hopefully they're bolted in on the top side of that, because that's gonna be fun. That bolt is bust. No, they just cut them off. So we should be good there. Alright. Alright, got it off. And now we gotta get all those shit through that. We're hoping there'll be a bolt to be able to remove said sheave and pulley. And the next fun.
Yeah, there was no fun. As you can see, we were unable to remove any of the brackets or sheaves because it's a boat. Why would anything be easy or cheap? We were going to have to source a new idler plate for a 30-year-old French boat. That should be easy, right? In the meantime, we have several other projects lined up.
And my fun project, I wish I would have taken it before, because that was nasty. I've been cleaning all the grease. There's still a little bit left. And we're going to grease it up again and put our new cable and chains on there. All part of the fun. And someday we'll get to go that way out into the water.
But before we can do that, we have a few more items to check off the list.
What are you doing, Russ?
A lot of swearing. Pieces of. Alright, so here we go. Alright. People. Aggravate. Yeah, I got it.
All right.
Wait a minute. There we go. Look how easy it is to reach all that stuff now. Amazing.
All of Russell's struggles paid off because we now had easy access to our quadrant and cables. At this point, we had everything finished on the steering system except the idler plate, which, as it turned out, we had to have custom made. Finally, a good bit of luck came our way as we found a fantastic machinist right in Anacortes who made a perfectly matched idler plate. We could now steer our boat again. Next on the list was installing a radar pole at the stern of the boat to hold our new system. We hadn't planned on replacing the radar, but we wanted to move it from the mast to the back of the boat. So when the mast was down for re-rigging, we had them remove the old one and replaced it with a more modern system. But this required drilling holes in our boat, something all boaters hate to do.
Here we go. We go mark it, and then we're gonna poke a hole in our boat.
Our beautiful boat.
Ah.
Bye-bye, Russell.
Russell had to make many trips in and out of the aft lazarette, and for a big guy going into a little space, well, I'm just lucky he's a patient man.
Okay, well, we have dry fit this beautiful mast a couple 16 times. But so far it looks like it's going to work just fine. And a lot of hole drilling.
Fit through the holes.
That's what counts.
Yeah, the bolts fit through the holes.
At this point, you'll notice we have our mast back. We're so close to going cruising, and although it seems like we should be able to relax a little, we still need to install the new electronics and finish up the wiring. And that is the project that made our boat go from this to this.
Mast lights, that's what we're hooking up today.
I am eternally grateful to have a husband, first mate, who knows his way around electrical stuff. Russell ran all of the wiring and did everything but the final hookups. He even spent a couple of nights on the boat alone just to get finished up before the marine electricians came to do the final connections. This was both to make sure we were 100% compliant with warranty requirements and also to make sure we didn't burn the boat down when we flipped a switch.
All right, here we go.
This was no small task and required tearing apart the interior of our beloved asylum. But at last it was finished and time for a much-deserved whiskey and a little rest for both Russell and his trusty assistant. Looking back at everything we did, I'm really proud of how far we've come. And in case you're wondering if we're one of those wealthy couples because of all the money we've spent, the answer is a big fat no. We save, we budget, we occasionally use a credit card, and we do any work that we can for ourselves. Do we have more that we'd like to do for the boat? I mean, yeah, doesn't every boat owner? But for now, we're very happy with our asylum and are just looking forward to the many places she will take us, the friends we'll take along, and the experiences that we'll have. Will we keep Asylum long term? Will she be the boat that we sail off into the sunset on? Who knows? Probably. But for now, we are just going to enjoy the opportunity she provides. We want to greet each wave that passes her keel and know it for that moment, to soak up the serenity of the wind and the sun and the rain. She is our amusement park ride on a breezy day, our shelter in stormy seas, our escape when things get crazy. She is our asylum. We love sharing our adventures and hope that you'll come along with us as we explore new places. If anyone asks if you've seen us, just say Russ and Denise went sailing.